Wires, thank you, we're gonna reconvene,
Where's the control
7:42.
True.
We can have our flag salute. Mr. Ferguson, will you do the flag salute?
Everybody running, please. Hand over your heart. Ready to begin?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, public comments? The other one heard. D. Holland? Remember to state your name.
Can we say name together? My name's Dee Holland. I have two things to cover. ASMO has their spring concert next week, High Desert on Monday, and Meadowlark on Tuesday, Wednesday. Dinner at 5:30, and the concert starts at 6:30. And we're selling one of those fabulous guitars handmade by Ken Falsgraf. They're $5 each. I have tickets. Consider it a donation if you're not thinking about a guitar. But $5 goes to ASMO. Also, they had their elections this week, and we have a president and a vice president. Jessica Holland's the president, Kelly Baker's the vice president, and we're still open for secretary and treasurer, so if anybody wants to help step up, we'd love to have you. Okay, and then the second one, a little bit more serious. On Tuesday this week, my grandson takes the bus on Tuesdays and Thursdays to his daycare. And he was dropped off, he's 8 years old. He was dropped off in a neighborhood that he's not familiar with. He doesn't drive. His daycare person is there when the bus comes. It's a vacant lot, and he was left alone. They were early. I have a problem with this. He was very upset. To add to that, he had been bullied on the bus by the older kids. We immediately let the transportation know and Tess, and Tess has said she's going to work on that. But to leave an 8-year-old little boy by himself is not acceptable. But that is our policy. Only the kindergartners do the bus drivers wait until there is an adult present. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna start with, thank you. Okay, we're on 8.01. Do we have AATA room tonight? Nope. How about CSCA?
No.
No? Okay. How about Alyssa?
Alright, so to start off, Meadowlark has been celebrating their staff this week during Staff Appreciation Week. They've been treated to breakfast, snacks, flowers, and gifts galore. ASMO Spring Concerts are coming up next week, and all the kids have been practicing for months. They're excited to show off their talents and parents. Meadowlark is also in the middle of state testing. The students are working very hard to stay focused and do their best on the test. Also, Mrs. Chun's received a grant from the Civil Air Patrol and Sony to work on STEM projects in the classroom. Her class has been working on robotics and learning the coding system to make the robots do various things, like haul objects and move in specific directions. It's been challenging, but a fun experience for these 4th graders. At High Desert is revamping its approach to supporting students. It hosted its first Saturday school in March in an effort to recoup ADA and provide support for the students. We had 21 Hawks attend from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. with 18 making up absences. A huge thank you to Mrs. Larson, who treated students to Krispy Kreme donuts and pizza. High Desert is having Saturday school this Saturday and expects another turnout. High Desert's basketball teams played their hearts out. We are so proud of both boys and girls teams in their first year in the Silver League. Our girls have made it to playoffs and will played Cal City for playoffs. Mrs. Alford, Mrs. Miller, and Mr. Spielman have been recognized for their commitment to our students with a Stay Gold coin. Their passion and patience is unwavering, and we are so lucky to have them at High Desert. At Vasquez, prom happened 2 weekends ago at the Sheraton Hotel by Universal Studios, and it was a huge success. Students enjoyed the beautiful venue that overlooked the city with a great DJ and food. On Thursday, May 9th and Friday, May 10th, the Herd concert will be at 7 o'clock in the Vasquez gym. Saturday, May 11th, Phase 3 ribbon cutting at the Vasquez softball field, and if there is rain in the gym, there will also be a game played JV versus varsity on Saturday. Thursday, May 16th is Night of the Stars at 7 p.m. in the VHS gym. Tuesday, May 28th is the Grad Walk at Metal Arc in High Desert for the seniors. Wednesday, May 29th is graduation. Seniors are also looking forward to Grad Night and Senior Sunset, which will be happening in the next few weeks. Also, baseball and softball have come to an end in their second round of CIF. Senior Isaiah Calvin will be advancing in CIF for track and field and is making countless new records for both the school and CIF as he further nears the finals. That's all I have.
Thank you. Just such a great job. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Construction report.
So for construction, nothing exceptionally new. We're still working on getting the back order check back from DSA regarding Acton School so that we can proceed with the taking down of the current fencing and put up the new synthetic picket fence. So we just don't want to take it down without being able to put something up. As soon as we get that go ahead from DSA, we'll proceed with that. In regards to the high school, the last couple pieces are the, if it's sunny, which we're just gonna hold it in the gym at this point because the weather's not looking really great. But there's locks, issue the cylinders on the locks of the concession stand for the restrooms. Ernesto's working on that with Ms. David, and they're working with, I guess, United Construction, or the building vendor, really, right, Silver Creek. So they're working to resolve that to make sure the locks are in sync with our locks. And then there is an issue, as Mr. Jorgensen pointed out, with the vendor board. I think you noticed that, Mr. Jorgensen, that it was cracked or splitting in certain places. They tried to resolve it with hardware, which actually made it worse, unfortunately, because of the cold weather and the warm weather. That particular material, if you put a screw in it or a nail in it, then it's going to further crack. So they're working to resolve that and trying to figure out the best material for it.
Can I ask a clarifying question? So now when you say they're trying, is it the same persons that tried the last time?
No, I think at this point it's our district, correct?
I'm gonna get a second opinion from the contractor to see what the recommendation is.
Okay.
At this point, what they're actually doing is looking, it was all installed the way it was designed to be installed with the materials that were approved in the plans. But because of the hot and cold and the turns in it, they are going to investigate it and see and ensure that the materials were actually constructed, that they're not faulty. And then after that, we are gonna get a second opinion because it actually would not be a warranty item.
Yeah. So they did it to spec, but so it's on us really to find the correct materials and solution.
I just want to note, with exception to their explanation that it's the expansion of the dirt from the temperature cold is a bunch of hooey, that my speculation is, and when I walked around and looked at it, I saw the tracking, is that when they pressed the surface, they bumped it with the whatever machine they were using, and then it began to push it and break them because they're actually broken. They're not just expanded, they've been broken, and then when they came back and tried, ooh, you better correct that. It happens. But they just need to do it to our satisfaction so that we don't have any liability issues or anything else.
Okay.
I wouldn't accept it at my house, I don't think anybody else would, and that just, it happens, so
I'll,
let's just.
I'll work with staff and make sure it gets resolved. Appreciate it.
Safety report?
On the safety report, we have Mr. Andrus and Guido Jaramillo, who's our campus security, attended a training on emergency tactical casualty care that focused on first aid for victims of violent critical incidents. The training was designed for law enforcement and other first responders, focused specifically on the immediate life-saving aid for the type of injuries that result in violent incidents and shootings. The information from the training is being reviewed to design an appropriate training for staff and students, and that will be aligned with our ALICE training. It'll be added into next year's training when we review the ALICE protocol. The Vasquez video production crew is continuing to work on a video that we've been talking about. That'll be ready Saturday, and the video will be used at the beginning of next year to provide age-appropriate training for all of our students. And then lastly, they're finalizing the AED device order. So next year we'll have the AED units at all schools as required by the new law. Staff received training last November and will receive follow-up training at the beginning of next year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Superintendent report.
Okay, so the first thing I'd like to report on is what we're referring to as the gold standard. And so we are going to embark on the development of our strategic plan per the direction of the board. I began working with you all, as you know, at the last board workshop and the previous board workshop on our strategic plan initial stages, but there'll be a 2-day more intensive workshop with our facilitator, Doug Demeen. He met with cabinet this week on Tuesday. We worked together for a couple hours, and we'll continue that work on June 3rd and June 8th. Now, I know Ms. Jensen expressed an interest. We decided that we would have up to 2 board members be present on that. So it's all stakeholders, right? We have parents, teachers, administration, classified representation, board representation for up to 2. So I know you expressed some interest. I don't know if any other board members would like to join you, but one other could.
Okay. And can I get those dates sent to me as soon as possible?
Absolutely.
Because we're still in school, so I want to make sure that
Sure.
we have my calendar going.
So that's it for the strategic plan at this point, and it's the gold standard, right? So we've been talking about Stay Gold for almost 2 years now. So the actual plan will be called the gold standard, and it will highlight, once the committee does its work, what are the district's core beliefs? What do we stand for? What are our values? What's our vision? Where are we going? And there's something problematic to me about very wordy mission statements, because you can walk up to a student and say, so what's your district's purpose? What do you do here? And it's very difficult for them, even for adults and for me, to articulate, well, we're going to ensure that every student in our district is a safe, contributing member of a democratic society. Especially if you walk up to an 8-year-old. But if you know the Stay Gold promise, the Palmdale promise, that I can remember, right? So that they have the Palmdale promise, we have Stay Gold. So that's something that we can explain to students what that means and what that is, and can be understandable to K-12 students and staff. So we're working towards that. The next thing I'd like to share is a letter it was to me about Mr. Larry Rowland. So I will leave names out of it, but this grandparent wrote and said, while I was in town visiting my son in Acton last month, I was so impressed with one of your teachers, Mr. Rowland, that I wanted to write this letter. I served as the senior engineer at the Johnson Space Center for NASA for 38 years. I retired to become a mechanical engineering professor at Texas A&M University, and also retired from that after 17 years. So it's a two-page single-space letter, I won't read the whole thing, but just a couple highlights. I believe that Mr. Rowland's dedication to his students rivals and probably exceeds the over and above Call of Duty attitude that I have experienced at the NASA space program. He describes this whole paragraph about Mr. Rowland's 6th grade class, and this grandparent's first encounter with Mr. Rowland was when his granddaughter came to him and explained the scientific process and what she needed to do for it. And him being from NASA, you know, he was interested because she wanted to do a whole project about TransHab, an inflatable spacecraft. But his point is that she was insistent that I must stick to Mr. Rowland's timeline because the grandparent was going to not make the timeline. And she said, no, we have to make Mr. Rowland's timeline. And that impacted this grandparent in a very positive way. He goes on to describe just Mr. Rowland very accurately in my experience in going through that classroom. So I will share this letter with the board. And if another movie is ever produced about a teacher who has unselfishly dedicated to his life to teaching and has influenced thousands of people, I would suggest it be entitled Mr. Rowland's Opus. I thought that was really touching. I just thought that was just a great letter. And coming from a grandparent, I thought was amazing. So that is that. We're gonna not only send you the dates for strategic plan, but we'll send you all the dates coming up because there's so many things happening at our school sites right now. So we'll get you all those dates in writing so that anything that you are coming to board, please let us know. Tomorrow night is the Herd concert. It's tonight as well, but of course we can't be there. So tomorrow night I will be there. Are any of you planning on going? So we'll make sure that you have parking and such.
I'm leaving town and I'm also going to miss the ribbon cutting on Saturday to attend the panel.
Yeah. Okay. All right, let us know if you plan on going to that. We'll make sure that I'll keep an eye out for you. Let's see, summer school fair. So I did not forget from last year that Mr. Fosgrass wanted us to address summer school to make sure that there is an equity there when we offer ESY. And so there is again, another summer school fair that Ms. Pattison is helping us host. It's an evening for families to explore summer school options, Thursday, May 30th, from 6 to 7 p.m. at High Desert School. The softball field dedication, we talked about that, but again, it's Saturday, this Saturday, 2 days from now, at 10:30 a.m. If anybody would like to go, it will be in the gymnasium because the weather is not looking like it's going to cooperate. And so there'll be food after we do the dedication to Larry Layton and honor him, and then the ribbon cutting, and then we'll have some food and break bread together. So that should be exciting. And I'd like to say a couple comments about Masters in Governance and Mr. Porter and Mr. Fox who aren't here this evening. So Masters in Governance will be explained in the video we're going to show you. But I just want to commend our board. They are really an exceptional group of people who've worked selflessly for the district, for the betterment of the district. Nobody on this board is looking to become assembly person or congressperson. And so this isn't a stepping stone. This is their way to give back. And so just before we play the video, I do want to share that part of that journey to get here was also during Mr. Porter's presidency, and he's ill, so you won't see him in this video because he's dealing with a personal illness, and he was part of the governance mindset to work towards bringing in some consultants to working as a team. He attended CSBA with some of our board members in the 17-18 school year, and he was instrumental towards taking on the lead in that and working with me at my suggestion that we go to the California School Board Association conference. And so he did a lot of things prior to this particular endeavor that the board took on. He was committed to this particular endeavor, but again, due to the illness, he's not in the video. So I'm just making a point of all of this to acknowledge that the reason he's not in the video. I didn't want anybody to have any sort of other assumption or takeaway from that. I appreciate his dedication, appreciate Mr. Fox's. He can't be here tonight due to his professional workday job. And so, so we appreciate all of his contributions as well. But with that, are we ready with the video? Maybe, if not, I'll have to talk more, which is not fun, so.
Beginning of the 2018-2019 school year, our Board of Education trustees made a commitment to attend a 40-hour, 5-module course called Masters in Governance, facilitated through the California School Board Association. The 5 courses were as follows: Foundations and Effective Governance, Policy and Judicial Review, School Finance, Human Resources, and Community Relations and Advocacy. Skilled speakers who are mainly California School Board Association officers or retired school administrators conducted intensive workshops, 8 hours in length, on Fridays and Saturdays, that varied in lecture format and sometimes interactive.
We talked about the fact that your budget has to follow ed code and be compliant. We also talked about you have to report the budget at least 4 times a year and that you're transparent. And we also said that you have to have long-term projections, and then making sure your LCFF is aligned to your LCAP goals and your strategic plan.
Compliant and transparent, very good. Give it up for table 9, that was wonderful.
All classes were linked by a common thread of understanding your role as a board member, as an individual, and as a team. I commend our trustees for their sacrifice. No pay, no benefits, on their own time, Fridays and Saturdays in Rancho Cucamonga. I'm proud of our board. I'm proud of their passion, their commitment, and their selfless service. Our trustees have a great sense of humor, a commitment beyond reproach, and have added to their already existing skill set. Knowledge is power. Thank you, Acton Agua Dulce Board of Trustees.
And they may have other comments to share during board comments, but I do want to share that when I say they have a sense of humor, I knew that already going into it, but it got expanded a bit during the 40 hours we spent together, because that's a lot of classroom time, and but there's a lot of knowledge and thoughts, and so we saw Ms. Jensen sharing, but each one of them shared, and including Mr. Fox, and we have a very, very thoughtful board. And one of the takeaways for me was just watching our board in action among the many other school district boards that were there. And there was some realization that, because I think sometimes when you're just in your own town with your own board, there's a tendency to be very, very self-critical and point out all of the, it's like having a pimple on your face and that's all you can think about. And it's huge, but not everybody sees that. And then you get amongst your peers, your colleagues, and you realize, okay, we're doing pretty good. So anyhow, I commend you and I thank you for your time and appreciate it. So that concludes superintendent comments.
Thank you. So 8.07, we have any submissions this evening? Thank you. Board comments, they'll be short tonight. We'll start with our student rep. Oh, you already did yours, excuse me.
Yeah.
Tim.
Put her in front.
Tim.
Well, I want to just talk about the Masters in Governance real quick, because I want to thank Larry for getting that and all the work that went into it. As a new board member, I went down there and I said, well, this is a training session, and so it was like all absorbing. And some of the highlights were, of course, Ken kept us alight. We never got a chance to sleep. So the humor and the camaraderie that we had at the table was good, because we took over table 9 right in the center. Until the last day, they kicked us out and said, you have to move. And so we had to move to a new table. But we went down there, and we were one of the small school districts, and there were districts with 10, 15, 20,000 students in their district, and I'm going, but we held our own. And then I heard comments and input from other board members and there was board members and superintendents there. And we kept looking and said, oh boy, they're in trouble. And then we're hearing a lot of things that we had experienced in years past, and now we're growing. And so for me, it was good to hear that all things were going on. So we didn't really have that big a problem, but we were able to focus on what we can continue to get better at. There were lots of board members there. I was one of the rookies that were in the room. There was maybe like, I probably want to say maybe 55–60% of the people that were there were all new elected in November, like myself. Some characters to be sure, and myself included. But it ranged from new board members to board members that have been doing it for 20 years. And so there was a lot of evidence of knowledge, of experience being shared, along with some great presentations by CSBA, doing a lot of things that were really good. And for me personally, I was glad to go there on the last day because I finally got to go to one of my graduations. When I graduated from college, I missed it because I was already in graduate school in Ohio. And then when the graduation came from my master's degree, I was already at my internship in San Diego, so I missed all my graduation. So I got my pin and I went to graduation. And it was great to go with all the colleagues. I'm sorry that Ed wasn't able to make it, but we had a great time, and I think we all worked hard, and I'm proud to be associated with it. That's all I have.
Thank you. Ken?
Tim, watch the table, it's not DSA approved.
Oh,
Alyssa, thank you as always for your report. I catch up on what's happening around here. Everybody, welcome back from the break we had. It was much needed. The CSBA training where I got to see other boards, it was like I started to feel really good about myself, so that should tell you everything you need to know. I don't want to get into any detail here, but we're going through a process right now you'll hear about in a few weeks, and it's given us as board members an opportunity to kind of take a look at what's happened over the past year. I'm really, really happy that when we finally cut the ribbon and get the vendor board taken care of, I'm glad that the Vasquez High School, the whole program, the gym, everything, that the vendor board is the biggest concern we have, because that's a fully DSA approved project that came in as planned, on budget, and again, fully DSA approved. I think that speaks a ton to the Citizens Oversight Committee for the bond and what can be done when the community comes together and supports education. So sometimes we take that building for granted, but it shouldn't be taken for granted. That's a huge accomplishment. I want to let you know that tomorrow, I don't know how many of you keep up with local politics, but Assembly Person Christy Smith is going to visit Agua Dulce, which is the iLead campus. Charter people don't clap too hard because she is the author of Bill 1507, which basically says you may not have a charter anywhere else. And then there's 3 other bills that weave together into that introduce things like if it has any effect on the fiscal condition of your district, you can input into that. Does anybody think that one kid leaving one district doesn't fit that definition of fiscal impact? And I'm sure it'll be pushed that way. Some people, you might have noticed, have a very different look at what vetting a charter means than I do. So I very much appreciate the charters that come in here and ask the question and can answer the questions, and maybe come back later and say, we need to fine tune that, or I don't really know that information, I'm gonna bring it back. That means so much to me, because I am not gonna be embarrassed out there tomorrow. I am not gonna be grouped with people who don't look at things like I do, and I'm gonna stand there, I'm gonna take my photo off with her and blow it up all over Facebook, because she has a very critical eye about charters. So I'm very proud that I'm gonna go out there and have something to show her. And again, thank you, charters, that come in here and give me something I can look at and not be embarrassed about. I want to talk a little bit about what Larry said about my summer school thing. You'll notice that one of the questions I asked the charters is, what do you do for my kids? We all know that summer school is typically about credit recovery in some areas that some people struggle with. Sometimes those people are what historically fit the Title I classification of students, whatever that used to be. I won't get any detail there, but we know it's about credit recovery. And this is an example of sometimes a means that somebody can use to do better in a class than maybe what we could have done. And I appreciate that. And that's really what choice means to me, not being disgruntled with a teacher temporarily and then hijacking your educational career. What I don't like about summer charter schools is the ones that send home parent packets where the parent grades it. I wish I would have had that, then I wouldn't have to steal report cards from the high school office and grab my real report cards out and have the girls that I knew write in their handwriting what my grade, what I wanted to be, so I wasn't grounded all summer. That never happened. That was just a rhetorical example. But I've seen examples where people, they, instead of doing credit recovery, helping with that, and I know that if a kid wants to leave our school after they've been exposed to something that seems a better fit, then that's their choice. But what I don't appreciate is I don't appreciate people putting things in my hallway that ask you questions before you enroll, like I certify that I have never had IEP, special education services, or that I have a 504. The Civil Liberties Union has written a paper about that being rampant in California. I also don't appreciate someone giving somebody a packet, having the parent grade it, you come in and review the packet for 1 hour, you do basket weaving or dancing or some of the other things I'm obviously illiterate at, and then you charge 6 days of enrollment. We all know that outside of ESY for SPED, there is no program funding for what we call summer school. If you go to school year round. So what ends up happening is some of these programs, they come in and take 6 days of enrollment. Who goes to school 6 days a week? Does anyone tell me where that's a typical practice? Japan, and I ain't in Japan, son. So charters, I encourage you to come in and if you can, just have some representation and some materials to show people that might be interested in that, because there's a demand. And then I want to just make sure that everybody that offers these services has the ability to show off their wares. So that's it, Kelly.
Thank you. As you can see, it was a very entertaining drive down to the Masters of Governance.
You know what? Next time, don't pick me up when I'm hitchhiking.
One of the most exciting part of the drive was going to McDonald's and getting a. So it was very entertaining. We learned a lot. It was great. It was great getting to know everyone on a personal level. And yes, it was very interesting. We looked around the room and we said, "Holy cow! I think we're the most together in this whole building." So it was great. We learned a lot. First, I'd like to thank our teachers. It's Teacher Appreciation Week. So if you're a parent and you haven't sent your teacher a nice little note, or a student, please remember to thank your teachers. We appreciate all they do. I appreciate Larry for having a barbecue for them. What was it, Friday?
Friday.
Yeah, so thank you for remembering our teachers. We're still testing, I believe. I don't think anyone's done. So hang in there. If you know you would think teachers had it easy. It's actually the most exhausting time because you're used to talking and moving and all that stuff. So hang in there. We hope everyone does well. I'm sorry that I'm not going to be at the ribbon cutting. I just want everyone to know I did have a death in my family, so I won't be able to attend that. And you know, I have had communication with Ed, and he didn't get a chance to go to the Master of Governance, but I just want everyone to know that, you know, we wish him the best, and we hope that his health can improve, and we're thinking of him at this time. With that, I really think that's all I have this evening, so I think next week is classified or the week after?
I think they're celebrating both this week. They've been celebrating this week at
Both at the same
the sites, both at the same time.
So thank you to our classified. I didn't mean to forget you. I just do it next week, so I was thinking we were too. So thank you to our classified staff. And that's all I have this evening. So with that, we're going to move on to 9, our consent calendar. I need to have a motion to for our consent calendar for items 9.2 through 9.4 as submitted. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? I'll second. Any discussion?
The personnel report is that in here?
It is.
The position, I don't want to pull that one.
It's 9.04.
That's within the consent calendar? Yeah, I want to pull that one.
I have a question on the, not on personnel, on the warrant register.
9.0.
Yeah, 903, yeah. On page 2, there was 38,631, Cordova, which was maintenance and consulting. Is that one of those ones that has been completed, or is that an ongoing? The consulting for maintenance? Page 2, 38,631 for Cardona.
Ms. David, you know offhand what that is?
That's one of our consultants. That's our maintenance.
And that's working with the continuing maintenance of our sites and helping guide us so that we can be most efficient, like what Ken was talking about, is
Correct.
putting together that plan.
Mhm.
Okay. I noticed that there's 2 athletic expenditures, page 5 and page 25. Are those ones that we're doing that will be, when we correct everything, will be done by the individual programs that they're associated with? Or is that, like on page 5, it's 38,638
The
BSN.
one that's BSN sports,
Sports.
that's actually materials.
So when we do those are sport specific or general in nature?
Those are, the way the code reads, if you read over, if you look under the code and it says 4310, so you're looking at the SACS code, and it reads Fund 01, General Fund Expenditure. Those are some sort of supplies for the athletic program, the instruction in the athletic program.
Ms. David's pointing out, so if you look on the screen, there's a 16-digit code that's called the SACS,
I would
right?
have to see what the exact materials are by pulling the actual invoice or the PO.
So it won't say what they actually purchased with it?
Right, but I mean, what I was just, it's, I know that because we're in that adjustment of correcting things, is that an expense that we're doing now that will be clarified by the sports program later, or is that something?
No, it's just a regular supplier material, the same way as a regular classroom teacher would have paper, pencils. These are supplies for the athletic program, typically consumable supplies.
All right. I think I have an idea. And then on the larger one on page 25, 38, 923, the East Bay.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what the specific material is, but because again, if you look at the code, and it's 4310, those would be supplies or materials typically with a lifespan of like a year. They're consumable sorts of things. So I'd have to pull if you'd like, I can pull it and get back to you on what the specific items were.
Well, I mean, the amount just captured my attention that, consumable over, I mean, that must be for all the program, or is that?
We'd have to, we'll follow
I
up.
just
We'll follow
wanted to
up
get
and
more
get back
detail
to you.
on that one because of the size of that.
Right, it could be multiple items, like for example, it could be, and I don't know specifically what, but for example, it could be multiple items in one complete order. That doesn't
Right.
signify it's just one
Right, so
item.
these are items already received and we're just paying the bill.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, and just to clarify, the process for making the purchase is the requester, typically the teacher, or an athletic director would fill out a purchase requisition, would submit that to the principal for
Right.
approval.
Right.
Once the principal approves it, it goes it's entered by the secretary, onto a PO. It goes back for approval to the principal for final approval, and then it goes to me. So it passes multiple people in the process.
Right, and so the concern that I have, so that we're on, the concern that I have, so I'm saying, is that there's been experience that there's been a lot of expenditures for athletic equipment that they did not need or use, and it sat around, in the thousands of dollars. So I wanna make sure this isn't something, this is responding to the new corrective processes we have with ASB and athletic expenditures, that there's the purchase orders, like you said, the coach request or the athletic director request, so that we're not buying stuff that's not gonna be used, because it's a lot of money. You know, we need to focus. I just want to make sure that this is falling in that same category. It's going by the processes that have been put, the corrective ones that have been put in place.
Well, it's actually two different issues, so, but you're correct. One is an issue of how are items procured, and is there a check and balance? So, to our knowledge, there is. So, we can confirm that and go back and just, because of the size of the purchase, just double check it, and then, Ms. David can follow up with you just to let you know what was purchased and that check and balance is indeed taking place. But the other piece is separate. So the other piece with the ASB and the auditing to ensure that, people are doing things in the correct way when they're doing fundraising, when they're giving out receipts, that things are done in triplicate form. A copy goes to the bank, a copy goes to school, a copy goes to the customer, or whatever the case is. Those pieces have been addressed and corrected, and Ms. Davis making sure that the training is taking place and people are doing what they need to do.
Okay, well, I don't wanna get into the details of
Okay.
all this. I just wanna, it's just a sensitive topic that, to make sure that we don't have to address this next year.
Yes.
Oh, look at all this stuff sitting around that, it's been sitting in the hallway for a year, because nobody used it, because we didn't need it, because it was
Sure.
purchased. Just wanna make sure we don't get into that. Okay,
Absolutely.
That's fine, thank you.
You got it.
That's all I have.
So we're, pulling 9.04?
Yeah, and I had a comment on that one, but I'll
Okay.
wait till we get to it.
So are we just going to vote to approve 9.02 and 3?
Correct, and then
Okay.
did you get a motion and a second?
We got a
to pull-
motion by Tim and a second by Kelly
To pull the item?
to pull item,
Okay, good.
well, I guess we'll do, I don't think we did it for just for
So you,
9.04.
so you wanna get a motion, so,
To approve the others.
Yeah, let me
other than the
approve
Well,
position.
9 and 3, and then we'll vote on 9.04. Okay, so Tim made a motion to approve 9.01 and 02. I second, we had discussion, I call for a vote.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and then we're
Tim,
going,
did you vote?
I said I.
he did.
Perfect.
Then we're going to pull item 9.04, personnel action report. Can I get a motion?
I'll move it in.
Second? And can I get a vote?
well, not yet, we have,
No, you
discussion.
talked, discussion, sorry.
That's okay, so my own, I don't know if it was coinciding with your thoughts, Mr. Falscott, but my only comment was there's a, on Catherine, just went away. Where it says elementary school teacher, it should read special education preschool teacher, and my agenda just went away, so let me just pull that. Oh, there we go. So it's Catherine Gonzalez. That particular position where it says elementary school teacher should be special education preschool teacher. And I don't know if that was what you're,
That takes care of it, thank you.
you're welcome.
Can we just fix that in the, can we fix that?
You-
Or do we have to pull it?
What, if, I will make a suggestion that the board make a motion to accept my
With the
amendment
correction.
language, special education preschool teacher, and strike elementary school teacher.
So we're gonna make a motion to approve 9.05 with the amendment to make Catherine Gonzalez elementary teacher, to strike that and make it a special education preschool teacher.
Correct.
And can I get a motion?
So moved.
Okay, and can I get a second?
I'll second.
And can I get a vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, 10.01, we're going to recommend that the job and description salary schedule for the newly proposed position designed to strengthen special education programs throughout Acton City Unified School District and to provide oversight to its board. Can I get a motion?
I'll move.
Can I get a second?
Second.
And can I get a vote?
I'm pulling this one, I want to talk about this one.
Okay, discussion, I'm sorry, I forgot the discussion. Go ahead.
Let's start with Tim.
So we're changing this from specialist to director.
Actually, what we currently have is a coordinator. We have a coordinator
Coordinator.
of special education services.
So the only concern I have
That
is that,
position was, the board accepted our recommendation to reduce that position. We eliminated that position,
right,
and tonight potentially we're moving this one.
Right. So with this one here, because of the director title, that this individual will still be district representative at IEPs, making sure that they're not gonna be directing somebody else to go, they're gonna be there themselves.
So both. So part of the issue is, you want somebody with an administrative credential and with special education experience and background. This job description requires that and would do exactly what you said. So when there's an IEP, she or he can attend that IEP and represent the district with no exposure at all. When you don't have a credential and the board authorizes somebody to represent the district in that capacity, I think there's some exposure there and some risk. And this alleviates that.
And then
Can you open that up?
the other question that I have is that
Job descriptions, what they're talking about.
with that in mind, that this is gonna be the balance with the balance of between administrative and not. I think we alluded that that's gonna be in the balance of that, right?
Correct, because sometimes the principal can serve that role too, but it depends on the particular IEP. So that would be orchestrated by the coordination of the principal and the director.
And then the other thing, the last thing point is this individual, this position going to be having oversight, working with charters to make sure that they're meeting the needs?
Yeah, correct, that's exactly right.
That's all I have.
Okay, party time. I've got some people that voted for me. I sit here because people voted for me, so the people that vote for me come first. There's this idea out there that maybe Mr. Cooper, come on up, Mr. Cooper, it's party time. There's this idea that Mr. Cooper, all Mr. Cooper does is he is the director of special education. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I have to. Is that all you do, Mr. Cooper?
No.
So throw some of the other things at me that you're responsible for at an assistant superintendent level.
I'm responsible for educational services.
Speak loud, my GoPro's going, this will be on YouTube.
Personnel. Feel like I have to.
Just hold it.
Don't get shamed.
Personnel.
There you go.
There we go. Education services as well as special education and anything else the district needs me to do.
Okay, so it is not, my understanding is it's not your day-to-day function to go in and observe special ed classrooms to make sure that everything is compliant, or to reach out to parents on a basis to do evaluations and say, I think you might need this, and I think you might need that.
That's correct.
Okay.
Although I do that sometimes.
So I want to let everybody know that in my long relationship as the SPED parent from hell in this district, I have never seen a time where the director level was a coordinator or whatever, excuse my language, sorry about that. But I have never seen a time where the assistant superintendent or the superintendent served the function of a SPED coordinator or a SPED director. Would that be accurate?
It would be.
Okay, so I don't know what the motivation is. Eliminating this position to put a pot of money over here for something else that someone may feel we need right at this particular time is not the motivation. Let me shed some light on some things that I think may help you understand motivation. I cannot talk about things other kids have been through, but what I can talk to you about is what I have been through in, let me see, Tammy's 13. So I have a decade of SPAD experience in this district. First, I'd like to thank the district for beginning my law career, because there have been times in IEPs where I've sat across a lawyer hired by this district to battle me and have walked away with compensatory time. I have never sued the district, but there have been plenty of times where we have got compensatory services and things because people were not showing up to do their work, their sessions, and all kinds of things like that. So we'll leave that at that. I've also had somebody somewhere in Iowa or Illinois, I like corn, but I don't know why they were looking at my kid through a Skype connection, and then recommending that they go to, that we take her to Children's Hospital to have her throat cut on so she could finally talk. She has yet to say a word to this day. I think why we're hiring this program is we're going to make this thing accountable, because here's what happens. Let's say that you don't have an ELD program. Let's say that your EL program, let's say your Title I programs, those are kind of iffy, and you don't have somebody going, hey, this is where the problem is starting. I can see it right there, and I ignore it, okay? What ends up happening is you end up with a SPED room. You've got behavioral issues that sometimes are genetic, that are sometimes, who knows, but you've got severe challenges where it takes adults to keep a calm situation. Then over here, you've got cognitive limitations, you've got physical limitations, and then somewhere in the middle, when all the attention is going to that, because we didn't do our interventions early, we have kids who are in there because maybe they've been misdiagnosed, meaning I didn't do well for 3 grades, and I'm starting to fall behind, and then we finally have an IEP. And so while the fiasco is going on with the behavior and this and all the attention is going wherever it goes, the kids in the middle that actually need the help don't get it. They grow up to be underemployed and chronically subject to drug abuse and other things I don't want to talk about. Would it be accurate to say that this position is meant to be filled by someone with a meaningful personality that goes out and looks at situations and tries to do their best to coordinate? Because paying people settlements that affect one kid getting services in one room is not a remedy. That doesn't take care of the rest of the kids. It robs you from, and I'll be the first one to blow up about, what do they call it? Infringement, impingement, encroachment, that SPED encroaches. It sure will if you let it out of control, and you got lawyers everywhere. So I tell you that my expectation, I'm very critical in this area, is that my expectation will have someone come in here that knows how to deal with people, that knows how to get out of their office, or at least get there in the morning for a good start, and go out and become familiar with some of the problems we have in our district, and support the teachers who are living this every day in and out, and try to meaningfully, by talking to parents and do things. And there's nothing worse than a SPED parent. You know that. You can see that from what I've had to say right here. But to meaningfully reach out and say, hey, this is what we can do, and this is what, and I fully support this position. I think that it's time that the district has stepped up to the plate and stopped making this some secondary position that is just not really meaningful. The district is telling you this is meaningful, and there will be oversight, and there will be expectations, and I think you're gonna see a difference, and it shows up. I'll tell you what, maybe I'm gonna get in trouble here, but when you're looking at a warrant register, Tim, I'm not looking for football helmets, I'm looking for names of attorneys that don't appear to be there, that do not have contracts. That's where your SPED payouts are. So please assure the public that this is something that's meaningful.
It is indeed, and well said.
So,
I'm done, thank you.
no, it absolutely is meaningful, because special education has become one of the most litigious fields in education itself. And it's critical to have somebody in our district, particularly also with our charter partnerships, to not only make sure we're doing our part within our own district boundaries, but we service the county for those charters, and in that regard, we act in the role of accountability. So it's critical from that extent too, and meaningful.
Thanks for reminding me of that. Here I go again. There was some confusion in the past that said we are going to direct the SPED activities of our charters, but yet somehow we're completely detached from it. One of the questions you'll hear me ask every charter in here is who is yourself? But y'all remember me asking you that, and you told me. And then I asked you, is there a psychologist, speech language pathologist, or any of those people that supply services to you? Because there's liability in that, and if you choose to go to a SELPA, the SELPA is going to look at you and say, I don't believe that you have the ability to do this, and there's some things in place. So I need everyone to understand, not only is this to work in our district, but it's to go out with Shay. Hey Shay, good afternoon. she goes out and looks at your charters. Has she ever been to your charter? Everybody go, yes, please, right now, thank you. But part of this person's job is to go out there and take a look and see, is there compliance? Is there evidence that the classrooms aren't blowing up and the kinds of things I talked about? And so this is a very multifaceted role, and it's meant, I don't want $1 spent on SPED that doesn't need to be spent, because my job is equity in this district. I know what my daughter is, I know what our future is, and we accept that and we love her for what she is, but there are kids in this district that when they're given the things that they need, they're going to be the leaders in the world that will affect her life. So I'll close out again. Thank you for your patience, everyone.
So I think what you're saying is that all kids.
Oh, don't do that to me.
Oh.
Everything I said.
Okay.
Is anyone confused about what I said? Show of hands. Thank you.
Not confused
Yeah.
This is part of that character that we just have to learn to get along with.
Wait till I get serious, Tim.
Okay, so do I have a motion? I'm
Yeah,
lost
now
now,
you-
where are we?
now you can,
Okay,
call
now
the
I'm going
vote.
for a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we're moving on to 11.01. Resolution 18-19.17, resolution considering agreement for energy conservation services with Feria Services for Havoc retrofit project.
HVAC.
HVAC,
Heating,
oh, sorry.
ventilation.
I know,
Heating,
got
air
it.
conditioning.
I'm sorry. Okay, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second,
Here.
and discussion.
So, unless there's questions from then David, I'll give a brief overview, and then if there's questions, then Ms. David can entertain those. But essentially, we've been discussing throughout the year Proposition 39 funding, which is the funds that are available through the state for districts to take advantage of if you can demonstrate through a formula that there is an energy savings and that there's a cost savings to the district. So we previously approved a company to take care of our LED lighting replacement, for example. That's no cost to the district, those funds are there available to us, we access those funds. In this case, this evening, you would be approving staff's recommendation for this particular company, Fiera, to be the vendor after going through the process of a request for bids, to do the HVAC replacement of antiquated, outdated, not current, the best and energy producing or energy cost savings HVAC systems. So you're approving the vendor to do that work.
Got anything? I do.
Okay, call for vote.
Hang on.
Oh, you do.
Lynn, in your time here, is it not true that we've gone from Prop 39 trying to figure out if we're gonna have to put money away to pay back what somebody had put out a couple of years ago, and now we're good with the past projects? Good.
That's correct.
And this vendor, it's not anybody's brother-in-law or anybody we know. There was a process here, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, I
We
get
had a bid
divorced, so
walk.
my brother-in-law never gets the job. So you're, you put this out to RFP,
Correct,
and they are the best responsible bidder.
that's correct. We did a job walk. They were required, any vendor that was going to put in a proposal needed to come, Mr. Arona, our group, and Ernesto all met them and walked them through.
Ernesto, you were there?
Yes, I was
Good,
there.
okay. So, the measurability on this and getting the funding, that's very clear on what they have to do when they give you a project list. Awesome, thank you.
Any other discussion? Call for vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Next, we have 11.02. District staff recommends to the Board of Trustees approval of Resolution 18-19.18, recommending approval of the Methodist Charter School renewal petition. Can I get a motion?
Move.
Second? Did you second?
You did.
Okay. And any discussion?
So, Ms. Passon is here if there is any discussion, but I also want to thank her for being here. She was in Sacramento today to help support the district's effort for a denial process at the state level at the California Department of Education that was a successful endeavor that was denied at the state level. But aside from that, she is here to answer any questions that you have.
So just for, this is the ones that we asked for, we asked for additional information that we got the report on.
You did.
We did,
Yeah,
and
but-
I'd just like to tell Beth that thank you for putting that together. It was very easy to understand. I liked the format, so I'd like to thank you for hanging in there and making some of those changes, so thank you. Any other discussion?
Yeah, it was, my understanding is anything the board asked that wasn't clear, and even if it was clear, you issued the 2-page thing. So is that posted on the district website where anyone can get to it?
You can, it's not at this time.
Yeah, once they, once the vote is over, you wanna remember, if we don't approve you, you have a way to get up to the state, and I think they've figured out that we're probably right. So, I got nothing on you people, wow.
No, just really, it was great, so thanks for hanging in there. So, we appreciate that. So can I get a call for the vote?
Aye.
So, congratulations, thank you.
Thank you, Jessica and team.
Thank you. Next, we have 11.03, a public hearing for Valient Charter School Renewal Petition. Can I get a motion to open the hearing? Second? I'll second. And we're gonna open the hearing at 8:44.
Okay, we have Jonathan Newman, who is the academic head of schools. He will do the presentation today for Valient. We have Kenna, who does back office, Aaron Macias, who is in charge of SPED, and also council, who will be presenting the public hearing today.
Just to clarify, Erin's not in charge of, she's for example today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Should I tell you
You
what
guys
I do?
have about 15 minutes.
Okay. Good evening. Can you hear me fine? Thank you for, thank you for having myself and my team here today, here representing Valient County of Los Angeles in our renewal petition presentation. So I just wanted to discuss a little bit high level about some of the accreditations and the affiliations we've had with our program over the last few years. And first and foremost, we're accredited through Advanced Ed, which is the largest community of education professionals in the world. It's similar to a WASC, but it's internationally recognized. And we got our accreditation through them, I believe, I can't remember, sorry, but I think it was 2017. Next slide. We've also had 56 NCAA courses approved, including 16 CP courses. Just wanted to kind of discuss some of the rigor and the quality of our courses. In addition, we have over 200 A through G approved courses with Val this year. And going back, we've been posting that every single year. But when I joined Valient this year, one of the things that we wanted to do was obviously increase student achievement. And I think one of the ways that we went about doing that is to increase engagement. And in our model, we want to really increase engagement best we can through a variety of methods. And if you look at our sort of stock photo here, sees that. But basically, we have an analog approach as well as a digital approach, and then more of an experiential approach, which are some new things that we initiated this year. We wanted to break out of the sort of stereotypical box that an online school has, or an independent study school has. And so we launched some new initiatives here, and we've seen some incredible results in terms of academic performance. I think that we can attribute a lot to this. Next slide, please. The first thing in terms of that sort of experiential approach is getting outdoors. And we have partnered with the Duke of Edinburgh Award, which is it's pretty unique in the United States, but it's been around Europe and the UK since 1950. And it's sort of like a Boy Scouts or Girl Scout program, but it's school-based. And essentially students volunteer to become part of this program, and they have goals that they set that are achievement goals, that are kind of linked to getting outside, community service, things like that. So we wanted to break away from the computer, essentially.
And so this is one of the ways that we're sort of kind of building a more well-rounded approach to our program. Next slide. But we also have some incredible digital foundations and our partnerships we're really proud of as well. We have presented and partnered with iNACOL, which is the largest sort of online council and kind of like a guide for the industry in terms of digital learning. We've also partnered and are affiliated with DLAC, which is a digital learning conference. And we have a strong partnership with Fuel Education in which we use lots of their courses. We don't use any of their teachers, of course. We use our own credential teachers that we monitor. But in terms of their course foundations, that's one of our big partnerships. And we are really proud of our sort of ongoing building on their curriculum, and where we have our own staff not only take the curriculum and manipulate it to match student needs, essentially, which is one of the reasons why we chose this model as opposed to other online providers that don't allow that sort of manipulation and change. Building community is another way in which we're trying to make this well-rounded education. We've had over 100 unique community events this school year alone. And that doesn't mean individual events, I mean unique events. We've had more than 100, we've had hundreds and hundreds of events. But individual unique events ranging from community focused to educational focused. And we do this for a variety of reasons. We want students to know who their teachers are, know who their staff are, know who their peers are. Want them to have obviously increased access to different types of learning experiences and educational experiences. But we want to see who our students are. We want to know them, and we want to see them, and it's sometimes hard to do that behind a computer screen. And so when Mr. Fallscraft earlier talked about EL programs and SPED programs and providing the best services, the only way we can really do that is really to know our students. And this is some of the ways in which we're able to do that. So one of our initiatives this year is something called This Is How I Work. And we had the goal this year of trying to increase student attendance through engagement and through modeling. And so we started by actually having our staff create videos and walkthroughs on how they worked in this unique model. So we had videos, we had websites that showed, oh, this is sort of what I do on a daily basis, and they shared them with their peers and their colleagues, and then we went and showed our students these things and asked them to do the exact same thing. And we wanted our students to kind of teach their peers, well, how does a first grader like Katie here, how does she go about working in this unique model? And so we have a couple of videos to show you. We'll actually have to get out of this presentation and go to the desktop here. If you press escape there. Go to the desktop. Yeah.
My name is Kate, and I'm 6 years old. I'm in first grade. My favorite subject could be history or science. I just can't choose which. My teacher is Miss Novak. I feel like she's the most awesomest teacher in the whole universe. When I get up in the morning, I come downstairs to the kitchen and do my schoolwork on the computer. So, anybody watch. If you watch, my dad picks out my assignments. We try to finish everything in a couple hours. The best part of doing my school online is Space Coaster. I like Miss Novak a ton.
How come?
Because she lets me do online school at a pace. Catching on your fingers and regrouping heads.
Yeah.
Just follow them.
We'll pause it here real quick here. So you notice that she mentioned Miss Novak a few times, that's her teacher, and of course, not planned, but Miss Novak herself made her own video, so I wanted to show that really quickly as well.
Back, and I wanted to take you through a typical work day for me. So I've got this nice little computer set up in the corner of the room with a very comfortable chair to sit on. I've got my laptop hooked up to my monitor, so I have a couple different screens to work on. That definitely helps with my workflow. I'm able to work more quickly when I've got a lot of screens open and I can move back and forth and get everything done all at once. Multitasking to me has always been very important, so I spend a lot of time doing that. And another great thing about my work day is that I have these super dogs to hang out and pet during the day, take like a minute break just to kind of relax before I jump back into my work. So as I sit back down at my chair and take a look at my computer, the first thing I'll do is look at my calendar for the day and figure out what I need to get done first. Make sure to reply to any of the emails that are sent to me. And then at that point, I move on to going through each of my students and making sure that everything's going okay with them and their work.
So this sort of initiative, we saw an increase of, I think, 22% in online attendance after we launched this program.
Beginning of the 2018-2019.
And it's just part of a bigger sort of professional development series that we have throughout the entire year, including an all-school kind of conference that we have, where it's teacher-led as well as outside stakeholders coming in and leading presentations. This is just another example. We can skip this one right now. So I think that this sort of multi-level approach of experiential, digital, as well as analog approach for learning, in addition to our partnerships, our affiliations, community building, etc., have resulted in some increased student achievement that we'd like to build upon moving forward. So we're looking at state test scores first. On the top there, we saw and I'll get into the actual numbers in the next slide in a second, increase over from 2016, 17, 2017, 18, increase in state test scores in both ELA and in math in all levels, which we're really proud of. Looking forward, if we're using our internal benchmark is the iReady assessment, so we're like NWA, something like that. And if you look here, we're looking forward to some even greater growth looking at that. Our tier 1 scores, I think, are in 70 to 80 percentile in both domains. And so we don't have the scores for this year, of course, yet, because we're still in the middle of state testing, but we're looking forward to even more improvement over last year's scores. Going to the next slide here, and just to kind of put numbers to it, from 17 to 18 in ELA literacy, we had 11.71% increase, and those were in the areas of reading and writing. And in mathematics, we increased 10%, and those were in all areas: concepts, procedures, problem solving, modeling, and data analysis, as well as communicating and reasoning. So I think we're hoping to build upon this success next year, and moving forward, we're hoping to increase the sort of offerings we have and to make it a more well-rounded educational opportunity for our students. So thank you for your time.
Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple I'd like to ask about, just for clarification, so as I continue to do some of my research.
Sure.
Now, your students have 24/7 access to their lessons online?
Those that utilize the online curriculum, yes, they do.
Okay, so you have students as well as online, or is it combo, or?
We have students that utilize a variety of other sort of educational curriculum, so they might be site-based or at their house, so they have like a textbook, for example. They might use an outside vendor, but the majority of our online, we have a lot of online-only students that utilize that, and when they do, they have access to their curriculum 24/7.
Now, I noticed you mentioned field trips for your extracurricular activities where the students come together so they actually interact with their peers.
Correct.
Rather than just at their computer screen.
Correct.
And those are frequent and?
Those are every day, basically. I mean, at least every week for sure, but almost every day.
Okay. Now, I noticed you mentioned NCAA approved course. Could you give me an example of that?
AP Physics, for example. AP English Literature. So what we do is we take for example, the field curriculum that's sort of already been created for us, and we tweak it and modify it to make it NCAA approved.
Okay, so now I'm connecting the dots between NCAA and your intramural exposure, where you have some organization where students can come together and compete in intramural sports with other schools?
We don't have that now.
And so there's no intramural anymore?
Well, we in terms of like organized sports teams.
Well, no, I mean, like, not CI, you're not CIF
No.
sanctioned, right? You know, so it's not CIF. But it's intramural, which is just something internal that, oh, I wanna play an intramural team from another school. So they have that competitors
We don't
just
have that.
internally.
No, but it's a good idea.
All right.
Most of our students are, I think, not to interrupt you, but most of our students that utilize those NCAA courses or are concerned about them are on traveling teams or being recruited, so they.
So they're participating through club sports
Exactly.
and other things like
Exactly.
that. Okay. So in the California Healthy Youth Act, it says, how are you handling your HIV and HPV exposure and training if you're doing it all online? Do you have one-on-one with teacher that gets that information required over to your students?
I'm not sure about that. I have to get back to you. So you're asking, how do we train our
It's a
teachers?
health-related item about requirements to alert students and teach them about HIV
Mm-hmm.
and HPV. That there's X number of hours that they get at a certain grade. This is at the 9 through 12 grade levels, not the minor grades. That, to me, it can't be done just by reading it on a computer. There needs to be some adult interaction and that they're getting that health exposure, that they're gonna be making these decisions from a health perspective. And then it also includes alcohol, tobacco, drugs, and primarily, do you have anything focused on vaping?
Well, I haven't.
So the health concept.
Sure.
what is
I
your
mean,
health
we
concept?
offer a health course.
Online?
It is online, but all of our online courses are taught by live teachers as well.
Okay.
So it's not just it's not.
So it would be embedded in that particular curriculum of
Right.
the class.
But I'm not sure if vaping is included in that. I have to
Well,
do it.
I'm dropping the hint to you. You
Yeah.
need to start including vaping because the 78-80% of high school students are being
Sure.
exposed to vaping. And
Sure.
to me, it's as high risk as drugs and tobacco because it's a very addictive procedure. Make sure that they're alert so that they understand. So you can take on a health instructor, so health is all about. Now, when it comes to physical activity, I'm always concerned about students sitting in a movie screen, sitting in a TV screen, sitting in a laptop, sitting in that, and all that exposure. Do we need to?
No, that's for them.
Oh,
So you would, we can just reset it for 15 minutes of questions and answers.
no.
And then we can always extend if needed.
That they're actually physically doing something in your physical education classes other than just, hey, parents, give me a log about how much activities your students walked, hiked, ran, did something. Is there something where they're actually doing some physical
I guess part of the
requirement they gotta go
a
out and
requirement in the course itself.
that's embedded for teachers online? They can do it online and instruct it, but what's the follow-up to make sure that their health is being accounted for, where they're actually getting some physical activity away from the computer screen?
Well, we do look at the results of the PFT test, of course. But I think what you're asking, just to clarify, is beyond a student log of activity that's provided by the teacher or by the student or the parent. Saying beyond that, what do we do?
Well, I know when I would be asked to coordinate a PE class online, I said, well, it's really challenging because, you know, it's hard to get it engaging. Are they physically capable of doing what they're doing? Is there safe? There's just a lot of things about student health that can't be met on a computer screen. So the requirements for HIV and HPV are there, they're mandated, gotta make sure we meet those needs. But then the alcohol, tobacco, drugs, looking at videos, that's really, there needs to be that give and take, and that's something that your online teachers, that's gonna be something that I'm looking at. Because you have 20 credit requirements for PE, right?
Correct.
Okay, so in that 20 credit requirements is just taking 4 classes or, you know, whatever to get to the 20 credits, answering questions, but there's something embedded in that program that says you gotta go out and do this physical activity, come back, take this test, do this timing event, so forth, okay. You said you already answered the part about your intramural part, we're all done there. And then the last thing I have is about socialization and what is your focus on bully behavior, cyberbullying, things like that? Is there a course, is that embedded in your health program? Or do you have a separate?
Well, we have separate initiatives that are related to that particular.
Bully behavior.
Yes, we do. But, you know, to be, I don't know if it's that rampant in our program. I think the reason for that is that we have an asynchronous learning model with synchronous sort of online instruction, right? That's specialized for students almost on an individual level often. So we don't have big classrooms in which students are interacting with each other, right? And we don't have message boards in which students are sort of commenting on each other. So we almost eliminate that aspect of it, if that makes sense.
Well, to you, but they're becoming more and more efficient about keystrokes and access to the internet and social messaging, that they need to know what is appropriate and being exposed, that when you're not around, they're on their phone texting to somebody.
Oh, I see what you're saying, sure.
So that there's
Right,
still
right,
that
yes.
conversation
Education,
about
yes, that's part of that.
appropriate
yes.
behavior with peer groups and so forth.
Absolutely,
And when
yeah.
they're separated, they're not collected in a
Yeah.
group.
In fact, it's embedded in the beginning of every single live session. We ask our teachers to go through that every single time, in addition to proper protocol for
Okay.
expectation.
Yeah. So if you'd just follow up on that HIV, HPV under the California Healthy Youth Act, I'd appreciate it. That's all I have.
Sure.
Is that all you have?
That's for me.
Okay, Ken, do you have any questions?
I have nothing for this charter.
I just have, just a couple questions, because I see that you use iReady, and I'm just briefly looking over it. I see it says you have 1362 enrolled and only 867 tested. Is that, am I looking at that correctly? Students assessed at the top?
Yes, you are.
So, how do you go about getting the data for all of your students?
Well, it's a little bit difficult, just because we have a lot of families that are sort of anti-test, and that's part of the reason why they come to us. And so when we have those sorts of families, we ask our ECs or our mentors, who are kind of like the homeroom teacher for these students, to go about getting the information a different way. Whether that's auditing specific course data individually that they're taking and doing a more thorough analysis on a course-by-course level, or gathering it through sort of we did a double blind at one point in our year where we had math samples and English samples and reading samples, and we did a double blind to see what were the levels of these students. We did it that way as well. But we're committed to getting that for every single student, but it's a matter of organizing it in kind of the same language, which is something that we when I show you this data for CAST, when I show you for iReady, it's not one for one. We try our best to do that, of course, and that's sort of how we work.
What about is your percentage for the CAST? How many?
In terms of
participation?
I think it's very similar to iReady.
Okay.
Very similar. I'm expecting this year to be much greater though.
Okay.
Based on what we've seen so far.
And how are you going about testing your students now on the task? Where are you testing them?
All over the area. We have hotels, we have churches that we participate in, libraries, etc. Anywhere that we can do it. We have a traveling team as well that meets in other public areas, and we just.
And is it a possibility that your percentage may be low because they're anti-testing, or because it's not convenient? Like they don't want to.
It's both. I mean, it's definitely both. I mean, it's also we have students who are 18 years old and working full-time jobs, and working on at nights on a weekend. So it sort of just depends on the situation. We're hoping this year, because we've had a few years of this experience now, to really tackle all those objections to testing, whether it's the anti-testing and kind of having a talk about why this is important for our school, whether it's a location issue, whether it's a time issue. We're really trying to overcome all objections this year, and we hope to. We really increase the number of opportunities we have for our students.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have for
Sure.
you. And we're going to move on to 12 future agenda items.
Just announce some closing time.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Closing time is 9:06. Thanks for reminding me. I would have forgotten. Turn off the power. Okay. Stop. Okay, so future agenda items.
Okay, so for the bond and future district projects, just David and I plan on meeting with a consulting group called ISOM. I was very impressed with them at a recent conference I went to. Ms. David is also familiar with them. Based on our feedback from the committee, I think I shared with you that there was some concerns at the end on follow-up and whatnot with the other consulting groups. So we'd like to give this one a try. They specialize in small school districts and they have a high success rate. and we'd like to bring them for after we sort of conduct an interview with them. We'd like to bring them to the board probably at one of the board meetings in June. On the individual school site presentations, so those will really be for next year.
Okay.
If we did them this year, they'd be very just kind of a brief thing just to get the ball rolling and just talk a little bit about their major academic campaigns they're working on. But otherwise, they'll really start full rollout next year. Volunteer of the year. Okay, June 13th is our Apple Award. If you recall last year, Christy Lewis received that. And so we'll be announcing who that is on June 13th. And then Valient Charter School recommendation, Ms. Patterson, when would that be?
Sure.
Oh, well, when would the recommendation be for Valient?
That is, it's the next board meeting, actually.
Okay, so May 23rd.
Yes.
Okay, anything else?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. And so, then move on to 13. It's just public holiday. I don't need to ask anything for that, right?
No.
Okay. And then report out, we have nothing to report out from closed sessions this evening.
So we just need a
We
motion.
just need a motion and a second.
Correct, to go back to close.
We're gonna go back into closed session this evening.
Right.
Okay, so we're gonna make, you moved,
He moved, I'll second.
you second. So this evening, we're gonna go back into closed session. Do we have to put the time there?
Yeah. Well, just,
9:09.
and vote.
And can I get a vote?